Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Media Warrior. We're on Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 6, Blood of My Blood. And wow, this one set up a lot of set pieces for us to look at tonight. We have Drogon, the dragon, reappearing. We have Sam finally getting to his ancestral home again with Gilly. We have the showdown at King's Landing between Jaime and the High Sparrow. Not to mention, of course, Walder Frey has reappeared on the scene, shouting at his sons. You gotta love Walder, even though you hate him. But let's start off where we normally start off, up the north. And this time we're starting off with Bran, pretty much where last episode ended. And we're seeing Bran basically being dragged through the snow by Meera, and obviously as just looking at the girl you can tell that she's not got the strength to drag him far, and she finally just falls to the ground, and just before the Whites turn up. Now Bran has been in one of his vision quests for the entire time, getting the download about the history of Westeros and Essos and all the things that have happened in the past, but also maybe a few flashes of what's going to happen in the future. We get to see the Mad King, Aeron Targaryen, or Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. We finally get to see him, and we see Jaime killing him as he orders everyone to burn King's Landing. So that's some credence for Jaime, who has been told this story to Brienne, I believe it was, that he wasn't all bad, and he actually did good by saving King's Landing from being burned by alchemist fire, by the green fire there. And we get to see another explosion of that fire in one of Bran's flashbacks or flash forwards. It's underground in a tunnel. So the question is, we know King's Landing didn't go up in fire. We know Jaime killed the king before that order was carried out. So where is this underground explosion happening? Is Bran seeing the future? Is this King's Landing? And perhaps the fire explodes because the Whites and the White Walkers have got that far south? If they've got that far south, then it's pretty much game over, really, because south of King's Landing, all you've got is Dawn. But it doesn't necessarily have to be King's Landing. I mean, that tunnel could have been anywhere. Perhaps it was Winterfell. Perhaps they managed to get some of this fire up to Winterfell, alchemist fire, and used it there, and they stop or try to stop the White Walkers at Winterfell by blowing it up there. Maybe. I mean, that's possible. I just hope that they don't get to King's Landing, because then I'll say it'll be game over. But just as all is looking lost, the Whites are just about to jump on and kill Bran and Meera. Who should turn up but Benjen Stark, the man who was last mentioned, I think, in Season 1, Episode 1 or 2. But he's certainly not looking too great, and obviously you can tell half white, half human here. We don't know it's him to start with. Obviously just this mysterious Black Rider appears with this cloth across half of his face, doing like a Zorro Batman impression there for a while. But I've got to admit, when he had that flail hanging down by his side and it just caught fire, that was pretty cool. I mean, this guy's obviously got a little bit of magic about him if he can turn a metal flail into fire to take out these Whites. And that was pretty hot. And then obviously he pulls Bran and Meera onto his horse. That's got to be one strong horse, though. It's now carrying three people, so it's not going to get far on that. But we get at least far enough away that they can have a bit of a campfire and a bit of a chat. And that's where Benjen reveals himself to Bran, who comes out of his trance. Supposedly he was brought back by the children of the forest as he was slowly turning into a white after being stabbed with an ice sword. And they save him by doing to him what they did to create the White Walkers in the first place, which is a bit bizarre and weird. So or that's what he states, so we can only assume that they stick a shard of dragon glass into his heart, which stops him turning full White Walker. And then he starts working for the Three-Eyed Raven, who has summoned him before he died at the hand of the Night King. And luckily he turns up just in time to save Bran and Meera. But that's interesting, another Stark reunion. And now they've got to get to the Wall. And as Benjen says, the Three-Eyed Raven isn't dead. Bran is now the Three-Eyed Raven, and he's got to get a handle on his talents and skills before they get to the Wall, because once the White Walkers and their army get to the Wall, the only thing standing between them and the south is probably going to be Bran and what little forces are manning the Wall. But I'm assuming the Whites, who seem to be able to climb walls and ceilings without any problem at all, will be able to get up that ice wall without too much issue as well, because we've already seen the wildlings do that in previous episodes, previous seasons. So if the wildlings can get up that wall, get over the wall, and then raid in the south, then I wouldn't have thought the Whites are going to have any problem scaling that wall. And if they do, then that's it, because there's not going to be enough people up north to fend off that attack. However, the wall is magical. So will it have something about it that prevents them touching it or coming close to it? We'll just have to wait and see. But then we move to Sam and Gilly and Baby in tow, and they finally get to Sam's home of Horn Hill, the ancestral home of the Tarlys. And we get to see Sam's mum and sister. Really nice moment. You've heard all these stories that Sam has told Jon before about how his dad is a bit of a bastard and how he threatened Sam that if Sam didn't take the black and go to the Wall, then he would have an accident while out hunting, because Randyll Tarly was just so embarrassed and humiliated by Sam's bookishness and weight and the fact that he was never going to be a soldier, and yet he was still the heir to House Tarly, and Randyll just wasn't having that, so send him to the Wall, which means that Tarly's second son Dickon becomes the heir. And that's fine, because Dickon looks like he's more of a soldier perhaps than Sam will be. But we get to see, as I say, Sam's mother and sister first, and they're really nice. They welcome Sam, they welcome Gilly, they welcome the baby into their home. Randyll Tarly's out hunting. So you get that moment of just everyone's happy to see Sam, and that's good. That sort of buffers the arrival before we get to see Sam and his dad face to face for many years over dinner. And we see that Gilly actually cleans up very nicely, thank you very much, thanks to a dress borrowed from Sam's sister. Now Randyll Tarly, although coming across in this episode as a real nasty piece of work to his son, you know, and being sarcastic and humiliating to him and telling him how he's already too fat so he doesn't need any more bread and how he will never be a soldier and he will never be a man. And yet Randyll Tarly, to be fair, is one of the most renowned knights and commanders in Westeros during Robert Baratheon's uprising. Randyll Tarly was on the side of Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. And Robert's only defeat during the rebellion came at the hands of Randyll Tarly. So the man is a good battlefield commander, and he's a great soldier, but as a father, he's coming up short. But that seems to be the thing with Game of Thrones for some reason. Families just don't seem to work. I don't think there's one, well, other than the Starks, probably the Starks are the only family where everyone's nice to each other. But we get to see Gilly finally having enough and standing up for Sam, who just sits there quaking in his shoes. And God, I just wanted Sam to, you know, stand up and snap, you know, and just start shouting back at his dad. Considering everything that Sam's gone through north of the Wall, he's killed a White Walker, he's been in battles, you know, he's been through all this tense, scary crap, and he's survived. and yet he still can't find the guts to stand up to his dad. And I was all through that scene, I was like, come on, Sam, for God's sake, stand up and say something to the man. But he didn't, and it took Gilly to defend her man, but unfortunately she did so in a way which revealed that she was a wildling. Now, after the dinner, Randall Tarley said that he would take Gilly on in the kitchens, and he would raise Sam's baby, or the baby, Gilly's baby, as a bastard, but under his roof. And Sam could go off and become a Meister. Now that's pretty much exactly what Sam wanted. That was the whole reason for coming here. Gilly and the baby would be taken care of by his family, and he would go off and become a Meister. So he was getting exactly what he wanted. But for some reason at the end, as we see, just as he's about to, he leaves Gilly, he says goodbye to Gilly, walks out of the bedroom, and we think, okay, so Sam's gone, he's going off to become a Meister, because this is exactly what we expected to happen. All of a sudden he bursts back in, grabs the baby, tells Gilly to follow him, goes and takes his family's sword, Heartsbane, from above the fireplace, another Targaryen blade, because traditionally it should be handed down to the eldest son, and he is the eldest son, so by rights it should be his. So he grabs Gilly, grabs the baby, grabs the sword, and leaves. So now what? I mean, Randall Tarley isn't going to put up with that. He's going to come after Sam to get the sword back, if nothing else. But why would Sam do that? Why would he put Gilly and his son, or the baby, it's not his son obviously, but the baby in danger like this? He can't go off and become a Meister with this hanging over him. Meisters aren't allowed to have wives and babies. So he can't go into the academy, the Meister Academy, with that. So what's he going to do with Gilly and the baby? Where's he going to take them? And with Tarley after him to get the sword back, because his dad's not going to sit on that, then what's going to happen to him? It seemed like a rather daft move to me. I mean, I don't quite understand why Sam would have done that. But I guess we'll see how it plays out in later episodes. But then we head off to Braavos, and we're back with Arya. And she's again watching the play, a slightly more recent version of events now, because we see Joffrey dying on stage by poison, and we get to see Lady Crane, who plays Cersei on the play, doing a pretty amazing acting job, one of the best scenes in the play, and actually obviously making Arya look at that scene in a slightly different way, because she's smiling and laughing as Joffrey dies of poison, because let's face it, nobody likes Joffrey anyway. But when she watches Lady Crane playing the part of Cersei, obviously crying and weeping over Joffrey's death, she looks conflicted. But then she finally decides to go and poison Lady Crane's rum, as per the assignment. And she's walking out when she bumps into Lady Crane and have this nice chat. And Lady Crane is saying to her, you've got very expressive eyes, and how she herself has got tired of playing different people, and it seems to have an impact on Arya, because obviously Arya's new role will be as an assassin, wearing different faces, taking on different roles. And we see Arya come back and knock the glass from Lady Crane's hand, preventing her from drinking the poison and then saving her life, and telling her to watch the young girl who hired the faceless men, because she wants them dead. And then she leaves. But the waif has been watching all this, obviously, and reports back to Jaqen H'ghar and says, unfortunately, well, Jaqen says, unfortunately, the waif is probably very happy that Arya didn't carry out her assignment, because now Jaqen says to her, okay, you have permission to go and kill Arya, but don't make it drawn out, give her a merciful death, make it quick. Which is probably what the waif has wanted, because she's obviously been jealous of Arya's relationship with Jaqen for ever since Arya arrived. Which is odd, because they're not supposed to have that sort of personality in the Faceless Men. You're supposed to be no one. And yet the waif is obviously someone, because she hates Arya, which is weird. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as clean cut as it seems in this scene, because I think Jaqen has a plan up his sleeve. I don't know. I could be entirely wrong. It might just be as simple as they're making it out to be. But it wouldn't surprise me if Arya doesn't kill the waif, and then Jaqen arrives and says, okay, you've now passed your final test. The waif wasn't fit to become a faceless man. So you can now become part of this religion, this organization, if you want. And let's face it, when it comes down to it, Arya is probably one of the deadliest people in the world of Game of Thrones right now, because she spent, I think you're probably looking at roughly a year, a good few months, under the tutelage of Syrio Forel, a Braavos swordmaster, one of the best Braavosi swordmasters in the world. And so he taught her sword fighting, and then she has spent months being tutored by the Faceless Men. She can fight blind. I mean, okay, she's still young, and she isn't perhaps that strong, but she's now got the knowledge and the skills that she would need to kill or attack or take out people where strength isn't necessarily a requirement. Just do it deviously. But give her a few more years, bulk up a little bit, and she'll probably be able to take on anyone in swordplay if she carries on training and carries on with the routines that Syrio taught her. But add the sword fighting skills to the assassination skills that she's been taught. She's one of the deadliest people around, so you've got to keep your eye out for her. And we'll see where she goes from here, because she's recovered Needle. So does she stay in Braavos, or does she head back to Westeros? You know, she can't hang around, because the waif's going to be after her, and then Jaqen's going to be after them, and then we'll have to see what happens. But I think she's probably regained her character now. She's once again the strong Arya Stark we all know and love. And she's got a mission, she's got a plan, and I think she's going to be heading back to Westeros. But then we head off to King's Landing, where it's all hitting the fan. As was originally planned out last episode, between Cersei, Jaime, the Tyrells, and Kevan Lannister. The Tyrell army marches into King's Landing, where they meet Jaime, and they head off to the Sept of Baelor, where the High Sparrow is waiting with Margaery Tyrell, ready for her walk of shame. And the army, or the soldiers, all line up at the bottom of that staircase, and Jaime rides up the stairs to have a chat with the High Sparrow. But the soldiers aren't really using the best weapons for in-town fighting. Those spears would be no use to them if the crowd erupted. But it all turns out that the High Sparrow has outfought them all, as Tommen arrives on the scene and says that he is joining forces with the High Sparrow, so that the king and the church will become one. But this is after Margaery and him have had a chat. So the question becomes, just how much of a pushover is Tommen? He's already had that talk with the High Sparrow in a previous episode of this season. So the High Sparrow's probably laid the groundwork. We know that he is really in love with Margaery and will do pretty much anything to save her and to keep her happy with him. And he has this chat with Margaery. And then we see the outcome being that he's now siding with the High Sparrow. But the question is Tommen just being used? Is he just a pawn? Or does he himself have any sort of plan here? He doesn't seem to. He seems to be so weak and so much of a pushover that everyone's pulling him from pillar to post. His mother, Jaime, the High Sparrow, Margaery. If anyone's got a plan here, I think it's probably Margaery. I think she's playing everyone. Because as it ended, she's now free of prison, so she can go back to the Red Keep. She's got the people on her side. She's got the High Sparrow and the Faith Militant on her side. And she's got Tommen on her side, the king. So she has basically taken the place of how Cersei was with Robert Baratheon. She is like the power behind the throne. That's how I'm seeing it. And it wouldn't surprise me if she was one of the people, if not the most instrumental in what happened to Jaime, where he was stripped of his rank as Knight Commander of the Kingsguard and sent away from King's Landing to head up the Lannister army. It wouldn't surprise me if she was perhaps one of the people who said to Tommen, this would probably be a good idea. You can't trust him. He won't go peacefully and work with the High Sparrow, so getting him out of King's Landing, putting him back with the Lannister forces, will save him. So it comes over well to Tommen, who obviously likes Jaime. So Tommen thinks he's doing Jaime a good thing. Yes, he's stripping him of his rank, but he's getting him out of danger. And all the while, what's actually happening is Margaery is weakening the Lannister power in King's Landing. Cersei is now on her own. Jaime is now head of the Lannister army, but he's now been ordered to go and retake Riverrun. So he's miles away, which leaves Cersei on her own with the Mountain, yes. She's got to get through a trial by combat, yes. But she's still on her own. All she's got is perhaps Qyburn. The Maester might still be on her side. But the small council is against her. The Tyrells are against her. Tommen is now in the control of Margaery and the High Sparrow. So it's not looking good for Cersei. I don't know how she's going to think a way out of this one, but somehow she always seems to do it. But the odds are stacked against her here. And then we find ourselves at the Twins with the Freys. Walder Frey, well, we haven't seen him since the Red Wedding went down. And he has some exposition to get through here, as is berating his sons, Blackwater and one of his other sons, who have lost Riverrun to Brynden Tully, and have come back with their tails between their legs to report to their father. So he has a good time shouting at them, telling them how much of an idiot they are, to go back and retake Riverrun. But as his sons explain to him, their army has been pretty much decimated now, and they're not just facing the remains of the Tully forces under Brynden Tully, the Blackfish. They're also facing House Mallister and House Blackwood, who have also risen in resistance to the Freys and have joined the Tullys. Add to that, the Brotherhood Without Banners are raiding Frey supply lines. However, the Freys do have an ace up their sleeve. They have Edmure Tully still hostage against Brynden's actions here. And this is interesting, because mentioning the Brotherhood Without Banners, last time we saw them, they were under the leadership of Beric Dondarrion, the guy who's been brought back from death about 6 times. Remember him? He was with Arya about season 3, I think it was, somewhere around season 3. So if Beric Dondarrion is still in charge, that's fine. But in the books, the Brotherhood Without Banners comes under the control of Lady Stoneheart, who is the resurrected Catelyn Stark. Now, whether the TV show will follow that plot, I don't know. They've already shown Beric Dondarrion in charge of the Brotherhood, as I say, in an earlier episode of an earlier season, so they could just stick with that. Catelyn's dead, leave her dead, and that's the end of it. But in the books, we know she's as I say, resurrected and in charge of the Brotherhood, and she's probably got a role to play further on down the line. So I don't know how this is going to pan out. It's quite possible that the Brotherhood might turn up to help out the Tullys, and you see Catelyn Stark riding in. I mean, what would that do to Brienne? Brienne's on her way down to Riverrun to meet up with the Blackfish to gain his help up north. But if Brienne turns up and sees Catelyn Stark, wow! I mean, what a moment that would be. I mean, she swore to defend Catelyn Stark, and then Catelyn gets killed at the Red Wedding, and that all went pear-shaped. So she went off to find Sansa and save her. But also coming to Riverrun is Jaime Lannister with the Lannister forces. Look how they left things, Brienne and Jaime. There was that connection between them. A lot of people are saying that maybe Brienne will bring the good out of Jaime, that he will turn to the light side because of Brienne, because of this connection they have. But so we've got 2 potentially awesome meetings there, earth-shattering meetings. If Brienne meets Jaime, or Brienne meets the resurrected Catelyn Stark, Lady Stoneheart, or if all 3 of them meet. But right now, Riverrun is the centre of 2 big armies: the Freys coming down from the north, and the Lannisters coming up from the south. So there's going to be, or there should be, quite a big battle there. But we saw in one of the flash forwards to next week's episode, we see Jaime talking to Brynden Tully, who says that they won't surrender. So whether it's going to be another one of those things where we think there's a big battle coming up, like we thought there was going to be a big battle in King's Landing between the Tyrell forces and the Faith Militant, that didn't happen. So whether we think there's a big battle going to be happening at Riverrun and that all gets decided by negotiations or something else turns up, I don't know. I hope there's going to be a big battle. I think we're due one at least. You know, we're more than halfway through the season now. We need at least one big battle, surely. And let's face it, the Freys are pretty much hated by just about every house in Westeros after the Red Wedding. I mean, obviously the guest rights tradition is one of the most solemn traditions in Westeros. All the houses abide by it. If you break bread with someone under their roof, you are safe. They won't harm you, you don't harm them. That's the tradition. And the Freys obviously broke it in the most gruesome way at the Red Wedding, and since then nobody trusts them. That's probably why House Mallister and House Blackwood have sided with Brynden Tully against the Freys, because they just can't trust the Freys. So we'll have to wait and see if that bears out. I think Walder Frey is on borrowed time here. The Twins are a very strategic position for anyone heading from Winterfell to Riverrun. The Twins are right in the middle, and they've got to be taken. Otherwise, you've got hundreds of miles to get around them, to get around that river, to get to Riverrun. So, yeah, I think it's going to kick off at Riverrun and the Twins, and I think Frey's going down. So that should be interesting to see. And then finally, we head off to the Dothraki Sea, where we see Daenerys and Daario Naharis leading up this long column of Dothraki. And Daenerys seems happy in Daario's company, but he doesn't look too comfortable altogether. Not as many Dothraki as perhaps we thought there were going to be, but obviously perhaps budgetary constraints prevented the CGI actually giving you the sort of numbers which we should be seeing. Daenerys is now in charge of the entire Dothraki people. Every Khalasar now belongs to her. Every Khal is dead. She made sure of that. She is in charge of all of them. We're talking of hundreds of thousands of horse-riding Dothraki here. And we only really see a few hundred in this episode. We just assume the others are out of camera shot. I'm assuming. There's no way of knowing for sure because we don't see them. But we get to see Daario and Dany having a bit of a chat, and Dany saying how they're heading back to Meereen, and how many ships does Daario think they'll need to get everyone, the Dothraki, the Second Sons, and the Unsullied, over to Westeros. And Daario says, oh, well, about 1,000. Oh, really? The same number that Euron said he was going to make to bring to Dany last episode. There's a coincidence. But I think he might be underestimating this slightly. Let's think about these. These ships, we don't really know how big they are, potentially, but horses are big animals. Okay, so you've got a big horse, you've got all the feed, all the water to keep the horse alive while you're travelling over the narrow sea. You've got the horse's rider and all his equipment. You've got obviously the crew of the ship and all the provisions required to keep them alive and going. So okay, so let's say 1,000 ships, just to round it out. 1,000 ships. Let's say, I'm not guesstimating, let's say 20 horses per ship. Let's give them a better, let's say 30 horses per ship, plus all their riders. Okay, this is just the Dothraki. So 30 horses per ship, 1,000 ships, 30,000 men. Now we know for a fact that Dany is in charge of hundreds of thousands of Dothraki. And the Second Sons, led by Daario, and the Unsullied, led by Grey Worm. So she hasn't got 1,000 ships would be nowhere near enough to get the entire fighting force that she is now in possession of over to Westeros. And if she did get 30,000 men over there, and all the houses of Westeros combined to fight her, she would be swamped. 30,000 sounds like a big number, but when you combine all the armies of all the houses of Westeros, they would outnumber them 5-6 to 1 easily. Plus they're in armour. Plus they're used to fighting these sort of wars because of all the civil wars in Westeros. The Dothraki don't wear armour, so if they charged into an army of Westeros infantry, they'd be cut to pieces. Or if they did something even more stupid and charged a Westeros cavalry unit, they'd just be smashed to smithereens. They wouldn't stand a chance. So the only two units of men that Dany actually really has are the Second Sons and the Unsullied, both elite infantry fighting units. Now you can use the Dothraki for raiding caravans, raiding supply routes, raiding behind enemy lines. They'd be fine for that. Mopping up survivors of battle, they'd be fine for that. But they can't take on a frontline military unit in Westeros and hope to survive. So the only thing Dany's got going for it is numbers. She has to get all of those people, all those hundreds of thousands of Dothraki, the Unsullied, Second Son, she has to get them all over to Westeros. How she's going to do that, I don't know. And it probably won't come down to numbers, because I don't think the show's going to be taking that much notice or paying that much attention to it. So what we'll probably see is they'll just say, oh, look, she's brought over this huge number of Dothraki on these few ships. Yeah. That's all I can see happening. But I will say that I think Daario is... Whereas before Daario thought he was romancing this queen and he knew what she was capable of and he knew that he could probably woo her and get what he wanted. All of a sudden he's found out that she can walk out of a burning building unscathed, and she has the metal to actually set that building afire with herself inside it and kill all those people to get what she wants. So she's that strong. And now he sees her riding a effing great dragon. So I think Daario is probably feeling a little bit shaken in his manhood right now. Just when he thinks, yeah, I've got Dany where I want her. She's mine. It's cool. All of a sudden, he's been hit with these two power plays by Dany, and he's probably rethinking his strategy about her right now. Perhaps he isn't quite where he thinks or hoped he was, and perhaps she isn't such a pushover that he was hoping she would be. So it leaves it open. Will their relationship founder? Will she find somebody else to marry, perhaps to ally herself with a stronger power? I don't know. Perhaps she'll marry Jon. Perhaps she'll marry Tommen. I mean, who the hell knows? But that's going to be a bit of an interesting relationship change for him, I think, definitely. But that's pretty much the entire episode. But let's go through just a few theories, questions I just want to throw out there, just to perhaps get you thinking a little bit. We've got Yara and Theon, who we see they're appearing next week. Now, if they take their ships that they've got, take them to Daenerys, take them to the Marine. Now, they haven't got enough ships, obviously anywhere near enough ships, to help Dany take all of her fighting force over to Westeros. But what they could do is ally themselves with Daenerys. Say, we're over here, the ships we've got are yours, our fighting men will work with you. We're willing to give our services to you if you let us help you beat the houses of Westeros who have shit all over our house for so long. Now, if that happens, and it could happen, and Tyrion knows Theon already, so that will be an in. He doesn't know Yara, perhaps, but he knows Theon. So at least there's some recognition there which might help them off. Now, if that does happen, and then Euron turns up however long later with his 1,000 ships, wouldn't it be pretty cool if Dany calls Euron into her throne room and he's like, hey, look what I've got for you. I've got this thousands of ships and they're all yours and all you need to do is marry me. And she's like, oh, thank you very much for these thousands of ships. Then she turns around, calls Yara and Theon out and says, okay, guys, there he is. He's all yours. Take him away. Kill him. Do whatever you want with him. I've got the ships. Thank you very much. So they take care of Euron and kill him. And then I would imagine the Ironborn sailors on those thousands of ships would then obey Yara and Theon. And all of the Ironborn of the Iron Islands want to get revenge on the houses of Westeros, and that's what Dany wants. Dany wants to get revenge on them for what they've done to the Targaryen family. So it could be a case of, let's all ally together, we'll all get what we want, we'll go back over to Westeros and we'll destroy them all. And if we do that, then Dany could give Yara or Theon, whoever's in charge of the Iron Islands, a much bigger chunk of ground and land, and they will become far more powerful and allied with the Dragon Queen. So there's one theory. Is Sansa pregnant? Now, last episode when she was talking to Baelish, she kept saying how she can feel what Ramsay did to her inside her, and she had her hand on her belly. Now, I've said this before in other episodes of UK Media Warrior, but if she is pregnant and she has Ramsay's kid, that could pull a lot of allies from the Bolton side over to the Starks. It could even make someone who is currently right next to Ramsay kill him, and the Bolton house will become allied with Sansa, because she will be the person in charge of them while her son or daughter grows to be old enough to take over the reins of the house. But it would give people an excuse to leave Ramsay and side with the good guys. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's about it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I say, we're season 6. I've only got 4 episodes more to go. This is torturous. We really need, like, I don't, 2 hours an episode and 10 episodes would probably be okay. You know, or 20 episodes of an hour each. I don't know, but we need more Game of Thrones. There isn't enough time in each episode for them to tell us what we need to see. And I think, I get the feeling they're skimming over a lot, streamlining a lot to get everyone together. And it seems to be moving so fast, and I just don't want it to end. It's a shame it's got to. But I'll see you all next week for episode 7 and the review recap of that. As I say, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it on your Facebook page. Let everybody else know about this. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next time. You guys take care.